Hello and welcome to the Sky Bet Ebor Runner by Runner guide for the 2024 edition of this fiercely competitive handicap. I'm delighted to be joined by Jack Nicol, our esteemed colleague and Racing TV's Flat Out podcast co-host. Jack, I suppose looking at York so far this week, it's gone pretty well. You're nap of the week content going in the Yorkshire Oaks.
Yeah, it's always very handy when the best bet of the week goes in. It takes the pressure off. But no, York itself, the Ebor meeting, it's always brilliant. York's probably my favourite track. I love going. I'm obviously going to be there on Saturday. We'll probably get into that in a bit more detail soon and the reason why. But I know York, it's always top class race and top class venue, and it's been fantastic so far.
Well, let's start with the runner by runner. Starting off with number one, Relentless Voyager for Oisin Murphy and Andrew Boulding. Some good mile 4 furlong group race form coming into this, Jack. Can he divide top weight?
I'm not sure. I think he might just have a bit too much on, certainly at the weight, and he's got to get over from stall 20. Interestingly, he is the chosen mount, as you say, of Oisin Murphy. I think that's interesting because they've got Fairbanks, who's going to be a leading contender as well. Just on Relentless Voyager, he's improved for Geldon. He won at the Epsom Festival, and then he produced probably another career best when second to Al Orsi last time. With that improvement, though, he has just been edging up the weights. He is the top weight here, and I think that might just be enough to see him sort of out of the claims for actually winning the race.
Number 2 is Queenstown for Aidan O'Brien. James Doyle takes the ride. Is this horse a group horse in a handicap, or do you reckon he's too high on the list as well?
Quite possibly. Look, we know he's probably one that's still a bit unexposed. He's, as in Aidan's words, he's been getting beat up by Kyprios. I think he was probably a little bit favoured in terms of, because they were quite tactical races, wasn't it? I think he was probably flattered in his proximity to Kyprios, who we know is obviously the best steer about. He's another who's probably improved for being Geldon, and I think he probably does have a bit scope for further improvement. He does have a big negative in stall 22. He's going to have to get over from there, but he is one of the pace angles. So James, you might take inspiration from Frankie, getting over from the high draw in past years. That would be a slight negative for me, and maybe he might just find one or two too good as well.
Well, number 3 shouldn't need any introduction to anyone that watches Flat Out. Wise Eagle. Jack, I know this horse means an awful lot to yourself and to your family, obviously trained by your brother Adam. Great run last time out. What realistic chance do you give him in this race?
I'm trying to give an objective view. Obviously, you don't want to get too carried away, but it's hard not to think that he has a good chance. It was great to really see him back to near enough his best there. You always know if this horse, if he's the last one travelling on the bridle, then it's going to be a going day. And most importantly, Adam's never really had him better than he has at the moment, and obviously that's hugely important. Adam thinks he's in great form, and we'd hope the race was today. You're just kind of counting down the minutes now for the race. The kind of negatives, you might think that if they go slow, that probably wouldn't suit him. He's a hold-up performer. He travels so strongly. So if they kind of steadied it up in front, that would be a negative for his case. But no, there's quite a few pace angles there. I think it'll be a good gallop, and he'll really enjoy picking his way through rivals. And hopefully he'll be the last off the bridle, and see what happens from the 2 furlong pole.
And obviously there was a lovely feature on the horse on Racing TV over the last week or two. What do you reckon it would mean, obviously, to your brother and to everyone that works with your brother for Wise Eagle to pull this off?
Oh, it's a fairy tale story. It's hard to really put in words, really. Let's be honest, Adam's such a small trainer. We've only got about 12, 13 horses in training at any one time. It shouldn't really be possible. This horse has obviously improved from a mark of 67 to run here. Over 40 pounds in improvement in time, and if he won it, this would be his 12th win for Adam. The owners have been so lucky, and they're just enjoying the ride, and I'm very lucky to have a very small part in it myself as well.
We'll move on. Best of luck with Wise Eagle. Number 4 is Nakib for Jim Crowley and William Haggis. Probably should have won at Newbury last time out over 2 miles. Stepping back down to a mile 6. Can he go one better?
I think he possibly could, yeah. A half-brother to Baid. He was never going to be as good as him, but...
Not quite as quick, I don't think.
No, absolutely not. By Nathaniel, he was always going to show a bit more stamina. But look, he looked a really improving and progressive steer last year. He ended the season on a bit of a damn squib, but he's had a little bit of a mixed performance so far this year, mixed bag, and that was definitely a step back in the right direction. As you say, I think he just got given a little bit too much to do. He was very unlucky probably not to win. He just got done by a head at the line. The switching around back with the cheek pieces. He ran a sneakily good race at Ascot. He was unlucky. He got stopped in his run a few times. And he's certainly another. I think if they go really quick, obviously dropping back in trip, I think probably 2 miles might be his best trip in time. But if they go really quick over mile 6 at this long straight like it is at York, I think he's got definite place claims, and he's definitely on my shortlist for William Haggis.
Number 5 is Crystal Delight. Horse has improved plenty for Harry Eustace this year. Tom Marcon takes the ride. I suppose unexposed in terms of we don't know what he's going to be like at this trip. Do you think that's a doubt?
Quite possibly, and a bigger concern maybe for me was last time out he put in such a really disappointing performance at Newmarket, so he's got to bounce back. Saying that, he has really improved since joining Harry Eustace this season. He's 2 from 3, and including a dominant victory here. I'd say that they'll probably think to go on again. It would just be a worry now. He's on a bit of a retrieval mission. As you say, that combined with stepping up and trip, that's a question mark too, and I think there might be a few just a bit stronger claims in here against him.
Number 6 is Yashin for Oisin Orr and Jesse Harrington. Very close up 7th in this race last year, only beaten 3 lengths. Bombed out in the Northumberland Plate, but has had a wind up since then. I suppose, Jack, if he comes back to the form he showed last year, he'd have to have some place claims.
No, I think you're spot on there. And I think just to add to that disappointing performance at Northumberland Plate, I think he came back as a sick horse, so you can put a line through that. Just looking back to his good run in 7th last year, he just got stopped in his run at the 2 furlong pole. I think connections would probably think he can do a bit better. He's closely matched, obviously, with Queenstown on his running in the Saddlebeg and in the vintage crop. So with £2 swing on him, you could see him maybe reversing that form, and he'd definitely be a lively outside. I think he's one of the bigger price that would definitely be one to consider.
Number 7 is Hipop D for Willie Mullins. Colin Keane comes over to take the ride. Now, I don't know what your Polish or German flat form is like, Jack, but this horse obviously has won in both those countries. He was second over hurdles last time out for Willie Mullins, so he has a bizarre profile to go into this race, but I suppose Mullins with Absurd last year showed that he can bring a horse that's been over hurdles to come back and run a huge race in this race.
Absolutely, and any horse trained by the master trainer Willie Mullins has to be given the utmost respect, doesn't he? And obviously the source of last year's winner, Absurd, as you say, he made a really solid debut there, went second in a Galway hurdle earlier this month, and that should put him spot on. Maybe not in terms of a usual prep, but fitness wise, he wouldn't have too much to find now on that, and he should be cherry ripe for this assignment. He holds solid enough German form. He won a listed race in 2022, and that on that form he must have certain claims. But he's a 7-year-old now, and only one horse, Litigant, in 2015 has won from that age group in going on 50 years. So that would be against him, as it would Wise Eagle, as we mentioned before. He's a 7-year-old, so that would be another negative against his name. But look, as we say, Willie Mullins, this is his chosen runner, so he must be respected.
Number 8, Magical Zoe, another horse that has gone on the flat this year, having been a smart novice and open hurdler, actually, for Henry de Bromhead. Was second in a Dawn Run Mares Novice Hurdle once upon a time, but has shown some really good flat form, including third in a Group 3 last time out. You'd think she has to have some good chance here for de Bromhead and Billy Lee, who've had a very good record when teaming up this season.
Yes, absolutely. And it's quite hard to get a handle on that form. They've decided this year, we're going to have a go on the flat. It was a really good run. She got just tightened for room on the far rail there in a Group 3 last time. That was solid enough. And she comes here now on handicap debut. I think she might be quite leniently let in off a mark of 102. I think she's probably better than that in time. We know she's going to have no problem in the hurly-burly of this race, certainly judged on her hurdles form as well, so that won't be a problem. And I think York's long straight will be really suitable to her as well. She's a strong traveller, and I think she's another that's got to be on your shortlist. She's got solid claims.
Number 9 is the Northumberland Plate winner himself, One Smooth Operator for Conor Beasley and Brian Ellison. I suppose the big thing with One Smooth Operator, Jack, is can he replicate his all-weather form to the turf? And I suppose if this race was being run around Newcastle on the all-weather, he'd probably be a single-figure price. He's not, but is that justice?
No, I think you're absolutely spot on here. He's 0 from 8 on the turf, and I think it's a huge ask to ask him to replicate it on the turf. As I say, if it was on the all weather back around Newcastle, you put him on your short list. I think that might have just been his day in the sun the last time at Newcastle. It was great for Brian Ellison, local trainer, to get his big win at Newcastle as well. But as I say, I think he might just find this a bit too much this time.
Number 10 is Beret Road. Very interesting profile for James Owen and Sylvester de Souza. Was the Triumph Hurdle favourite for the majority of the jumps campaign this year before not quite getting to Cheltenham. Surely he can get involved, but he must settle better than what he's done so far on the flat.
Well, that's it. He's always been quite a free-going horse, isn't he? But look, if you go back, he's a former Royal Ascot winner turned classy juvenile hurdler. He did pick up an injury earlier this year, didn't he? He ruled him out at the back end of the jumps campaign. He's returned there after 181 days. It was a pleasing enough run at Ascot, I thought, but it did smack of a prep run for this. That'll bring him on nicely. And as I say, if you go back further, there's some classy back form there for him, and it would be no surprise to see him go close. He's got the right profile for this type of race.
Number 11 is Ziggy, another horse for Harry Eustace with Richard Kingscote up. A good win at the course last time over 1 mile 4 furlong, but a little bit like Harry Eustace's stablemate that we already talked about, Crystal Delight. Stamina concerns potentially?
Possibly, yes. I would probably glean more promise for him about staying the trip. He's a horse that had injury problems last year, but he's returned better than ever this year. He really has been quite impressive and consistent. He might just lack the necessary class, but I can definitely see him being thereabouts, but maybe not quite good enough to win the race.
Number 12 is Fairbanks, another horse for Andrew Balding. David Probert takes the ride on this horse. Some really good, solid, consistent form throughout this year. He won 2 starts ago, second close up behind Align the Stars at Goodwood last time out. My only question to you, Jack, was furlong down, I'd have had him the winner all over, and he ended up getting slightly outbattled. Would that in any way concern you, or have I slightly overlooked, or underlooked, I suppose?
Possibly, yeah. I think he is quite a quirky customer, and that might lend itself to why Oisin Murphy's decided to ride Relentless Voyager. If it was my choice, I would ride this lad. The market would agree as well. He's £2 well in on his current mark. As I say, though, he is just. I think he's got quite a lot going on between the ears, hasn't he? But it was a really impressive win in first-time blinkers at Newmarket. He's consolidated that with a decent second at Goodwood, let's be honest. But he is just creeping up in the weights. I think he has definite place claims, but I think he's another that might just find a few of these too good.
We'll move on to number 13, which is Epic Poet. Now, at the moment, at the time of recording, he's in the favourites position. He was second at Royal Ascot. That's been very well advertised behind Crystal Black, who's Melbourne Cup bound. He was eye-catching when fifth in the John Smith's Cup last time out. Do you reckon, Jack, this horse has a very justifiable favourite chance?
Absolutely. I think he's got huge claims, and it's no surprise. Danny Tudhope, who is the regular rider of Wise Eagle, there's no begrudging him choosing to ride this fella. You know, he's caught the eye on all 3 starts this year. If you go back, his French form's really solid. Last year he was a little disappointing. He was for a yard that really struggled to get any winners, and since joining Dave O'Meara, he's never looked back. And as I say, you go back to Royal Ascot, he was a good staying on. He was, I think, going to go to Haydock on the abandoned card. So they then thought, okay, we'll go to York. We've seen there again, he was staying on past beaten rivals or over a trip that was too short for him. A little question mark would be is whether if he does stay this mile 6, but I don't think it's any problem to him. And I really do think there's hard to really pick holes in him, and I think he is probably the rightful favourite.
Yeah, I tend to agree on that. Number 14 is Sea King for a partnership that must be respected, especially in these staying handicaps of Sir Mark Prescott and Luke Morris. This is a horse that I suppose, unlike plenty of those horses, isn't necessarily proven at a mile 6, but has won over a mile 5 and has been generally quite progressive.
He has, yeah. He's a winner of 2 of his 4 starts this season. The problem being now he is off a career high mark, and I think he must find a bit more to be competitive here. He is, though, a strong traveller, and he probably will find this test to his liking, but I'm just not sure he might have the necessary class to get involved.
Number 15 is Alfred Bshe, who was so narrowly denied in this race by the smallest of margins in 2022. He's had an awfully long absence to overcome before a quiet run just a couple of weeks ago. He returns for Ian Williams. This would be an enormous training performance if he was able to get this horse back to his best.
100%, yeah. As you say, he was so unlucky not to do the double during that Ebor week 2 years ago, but he's been off for pretty much that whole time since. He got injured next time out at Chester. As you say, it was a quiet run at Ascot, and that was only 2 weeks ago. It's a quick enough turnaround, and it was a pretty listless performance that day as well. And I'd be very surprised to see him being good enough to come on the back of those circumstances to win this race.
Number 16 is Not So Sleepy. Now, I know your partner in the Flat Out podcast, Joey Laver, must love Not So Sleepy to bits. I think he's his favourite horse in training. He's been a tremendous horse for connections and theoretically quite well handicapped. I have a little bit of a worry about the ground with him. I think you'd want it a little bit softer than he's realistically going to get. I know there's been rain around York the last night or two, but he'd want it softer than the good to firm in places that it currently is.
Yeah, I think you're right. He's always a horse that prefers a good bit of ease underfoot, isn't he? And at the grand old age of 12, I mean, what a wonderful servant he's been to the sport of racing, doing it at the top level in both codes, and most recently at Sandown in December, winning his Grade 1. But as I say, at the age of 12, he's a legend of a horse, but I think this just might be a bit too much to bite off at this stage of his career.
Number 17 is My Mate Mozzie. Now, he turns up in every dance, whether it be a flat handicap, whether it be a competitive handicap hurdle. Tends to find a couple too good, but I suppose if you were looking for something maybe at an each way price that's realistically going to run well, you'd think Gavin Cromwell's horse would.
For sure, yeah. I think he's another horse that's a bit of a thinker. As you say, he always finds maybe one or two too good, but he's a very talented dual-purpose performer, and he has definite claims certainly on his third in the Copper Horse at Royal Ascot in June. He's only £2 high for that effort, and should find York's long straight much more to his liking as well. He enjoys good grounding and rides in good form on the back of his third over hurdles at Galway earlier this month, so he won't lack for fitness. And yeah, he's another with a good profile, and I think he might just be sneaking in under the radar. He's definitely one for the shortlist.
Number 18 is Chillingham for Callum Rodriguez and a red-hot trainer in Ed Bethel. He's been a consistent horse for a couple of seasons now over a variety of trips. But again, a little bit like My Mate Mozzie, does find it difficult to get that head in front.
Yeah, absolutely. I know Ed Bethel thinks the world of this horse, and I would worry as well. I think he's a better horse with a bit of ease underfoot. I think he could be one for these back-end handicaps. He might just find this a bit too lively on quick ground. At the same time, I think he is definitely a horse that he's another that just thinks about it a bit too much, and I don't think he puts it all in. I'm sure one day he might just get his head in front. It's no surprise that they've deployed the headgear in the past as well. So, yeah, I think he might just find a few of these too good.
Number 19 is Chiava, who's been a tremendous dual-purpose horse for connections. Obviously has a fantastic record around York. Bounced back to form when second in the summer hurdle at Market Raisin last time out for Adrian Keatley. I know, Jack, you were up seeing Adrian Keatley a couple of weeks ago for Racing TV. Would you have been inspired by the way he talked about this horse?
I think so. He certainly gleaned a bit of positivity. You know, he's been in good form. I think he was a little bit unlucky not to win at Market Raisin. What we do know as well, he absolutely loves York. He's a 3-time course winner. He was going to be going for this race last year, but a late setback ruled him out of the race. It's great now that they can get in again this year. The weights are obviously quite low, certainly historically for the race. And I think he's definitely a lively outsider. I definitely think he could be one to belie his odds. Adrian's been in great form this summer, and the horse, as we know, he likes the track. There's going to be no worries in that aspect. And as I say, I think he's definitely one for place claims at bigger odds.
Number 20 is Iron Line, another for the David O'Mara stable. He's been a bit boom or bust this year. He's been excellent at times. He's bombed out a few times as well. Off a mark of 95, excellent racing weight to go to war with. Is this a bit of a lurker down the bottom of the weights?
If there was a bit of ease underfoot, I think definitely. I think he's a horse, again, that might be one to keep an eye on, certainly for these back-end handicaps when you know the mud is flying. He has improved for Geldon. He's a winner of 3 of his 6 starts, and I was actually on course at Haydock the day he beat Wise Eagle. I mean, we had excuses that day, but Iron Line was very impressive. He came from back of the field, and I think this test will suit. He does now have a career-high mark, and I think, as I say, I think with conditions, he might just find this a bit too spicy on the quick ground. And yeah, something like the November handicap or something of the same ilk would be one for him sort of in the next month or two.
Just two more to get through. 21 is one for the gutter for Ian Williams and Joe Fanning. Joe Fanning has had some excellent successes, throughout his career, but especially this year, he's popped up in every big festival. He's going to have to pull something out of the fire here, though, to get one for the gutter up, you'd think, based off how his overall form looks in comparison to others.
I think so, yeah. He's definitely one that might just lack the necessary class to win a race like this. And let's be honest, he shouldn't really be getting in the race. If we look on the historic bottom weight, he's getting in here. He's won off marks of 85 and 87. I think he's off mark of 90, isn't he? So he's going to have a bit to find on that respect anyway. And even on his best form, it's hard to say he would ever really have a chance of winning this. So he's one to rule out for me.
And number 22, off a mark of 86. I suspect it's been a while since a horse rated 86 has snuck into the Ebor, but Forza Orta for Kevin Ryan and Cam Hardy, a pretty listless run on Wednesday in the 2-mile race. He must be up against it.
It's interesting you should say a listless performance, because that's what I've got in my notes here as well. And yeah, look, it's a huge to ask to kind of be competitive here. He's another on his very best form that you would struggle to see him get involved. To do that now on such a poor run there on Wednesday, it's a huge ask. And yeah, it's quite odd. I couldn't really give him any sort of positive mention. And yeah, he's definitely one to rule out for me.
So that's all 22 runners for the Sky Bet Ebor. Just before I get your 1, 2, 3, 4, Jack, to wrap this all up, just looking at the way York has been going this week, when you look at the draw, when you look at perhaps where you'd want to be in the race, how do you see this Ebor perhaps mapping out from a pace perspective, and ideally where you'd like to be drawn past on previous years?
Well, from our aspect with Wise Eagle, we were absolutely delighted to get stall 12. You don't want to get too low, and of course you don't want to be too high. It does look like some of the higher numbers is where the pace is at, so they should take them along, certainly down the centre of the track. And it's about finding your place going into that first bend, isn't it? I'd say certainly from Wise Eagle, we're going to be towards the back end, picking our way through rivals and hoping that there's going to be a bit of a pace collapse. As I say, I think there's 3 or 4 that like to go on, and that should deliver itself to a fair race, as it always is at York. It usually is that way. There has been a bit of a pace bias, but I think they'll probably stay towards the far side and down the middle of the track, and hopefully that'll spread out, and there shouldn't be too many hard luck stories anyway.
So if you were to pin your colours to the mast for 1, 2, 3, 4 for the racing TV viewers, who would it be, Jack? Who wins the Sky Bet Ebor?
I mean, it would be remiss of me not to put up Wise Eagle. I mean, I have to, don't I? So I'm apologies to viewers for that. It would be sacrilege for me not to put him up. Genuinely, I do think he's got place claims. As I say, the most important thing, he's coming here in the form of his life. Adam's been very happy with his preparation. Providing they don't go slowly and turn it into a bit of a crawl, I think he's going to be there. Hopefully the last one off the bridle, and we'll see what happens from there.
And Jack, if I was to push you for your 2nd, 3rd and 4th, potentially behind the dream success of Wise Eagle, who would they be?
Well, of course, without Wise Eagle, I think my main bet would be Epic Poet. It's very hard to pick holes in his claims. 3 really eye-catching runs this season. He's got classy back form in France, and everything's just sort of been building towards this. I suppose the minor question mark would be whether he stays a trip. I think he will. I don't think he'll have any problems with that. And I can see him finishing fast and late under Danny Tudhope, and I think he's got excellent claims. In terms of 3rd position, I think Nakib as well. I think if they go quick, it all relies on the pace for me, doesn't it, really? But Nakib, he was very unlucky not to win there at Newbury the last day. The switching now into cheek pieces, I think that might eke out a bit further improvement. Dropping down a trip again, that might be the problem if they do go slow. But I think he's very good, and as I say, I think he's quite well handicapped. I would give a mention to Kiara in 4th. I think he is definitely one at a big price. I think he's there for place claim, so I think Punter should look out for a concessions. Obviously, you can get 6 places, all the way down to 8 places as well, so shop around. But I have to mention Magical Zoe. I think she'll be in the frame. I think she's a bit of a dark horse, isn't she? I think she could be let in lightly off a mark of 102. And the way she's been campaigned, Henry de Brom has done a wonderful job with a similar filly in terms of endearment. And I think this filly is quite the same. Handicap debut here, and I can see her definitely going well.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. If I was to have my two pence worth, I would be having it on Magical Zoe as well. I think she's thoroughly unexposed and potentially is leniently treated on handicap debut. Thank you to Jack for obviously bringing us through those 22 runners in such a concise and excellent way. I hope that Wise Eagle runs very well for you and the family. And best of luck to all the connections and best of luck to all your racing TV viewers. Hopefully you enjoy the Sky Bet Ebor and hopefully you find the winner.